disgusting. I'm like so sure. It's like, barf me out. Yeah.
It is 9 minutes before 9. Teenage girls often seem to have their own language, and what you've just heard is one version of it. That was rock star Frank Zappa and his 14-year-old daughter, Moon Unit, on the hit record Valley Girl. Now, the song parodies the lingo of girls in California's San Fernando Valley. But what began as a spoof has kind of become a teenage craze. Kids everywhere are starting to talk and dress like the Valley Girls. Frank and Moon Zappa are in our ABC studio in Los Angeles to tell us about this trend. And good morning to both of you.
Hi.
I'll start with you, Moon, because you go to school in the San Fernando Valley. Want to tell us what a Valley Girl is really like?
You don't want to know.
Why?
Sure, they want to know.
Well, let's see. What's a Valley Girl like? A Valley Girl is, like, oh my God! How's that?
Okay. Well, what is she like in her values, her mannerisms, the way she acts? I mean, you're with these people every day.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to communicate with them. They're sort of on another planet. Gee, I can't really describe what they're like.
Well, what are the values?
Their values. Each person.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
We have a totally tubular episode this week,
Oh
you
my
guys.
God.
But in case you're wondering if Valley Girl was based on a book, it was not. It was not. The thing is, when the pandemic started, well, so many years ago now, we committed to doing a brand new episode every single week. And so that meant we had to expand what we mean by book. So we really will consider any movie that's been adapted from any literary source whatsoever. And it could be a play. It could be a song. It could be a play and a song, as in today's movie, or it could be a magazine article, a short story, and a novella, or it could actually be, a book. So this week we're going to be talking about Valley Girl, which is based both on the song by Frank Zappa and also loosely-ish, except it has a happy ending on Romeo and Juliet. I would throw in too that there's several Graduate references going on here as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before we do, if you have suggestions for movies, movie adaptations that you would like for us to cover, we would love to know about them. And there's a few places where you can make those suggestions, meet other listeners of this podcast, and interact with us on the internet.
We do have a basic Facebook page, and the episodes are posted there. We're much more interactive in our private Facebook group, and it's just a group where people talk about books and movies and a little bit of pop culture and old-time movie stars. So you type in Book VS Movie Podcast Group, ask to join, and then we have two posts there. One is both of them are actually pretty substantive. I mean, one is the list of the shows we've already covered, books and movies and songs and things like that. And the other one's just a list of ideas. We just ask that whatever the source is, it should be pretty easy for us to get our hands on. And the movie needs to be streaming on a major app. We're very lucky because our movie today is streaming on Amazon right now, but also at a bunch of other places for free. On Twitter, as long as that exists at Book versus a Movie, we'll look into threads. Like, we have to look into everything. Instagram, Book versus Movie, spell that all out. We have an old-timey email, It's bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com.
I have to admit, I signed up yesterday. I was like, I'm too scared to do anything.
I did the same this week. Yeah, we're dating the show because it happened this very week. But like 30 million, it's just in the U.S. right now. I think that's so.
Is that true?
I
okay.
think so. So I think Twitter.
I mean,
all those places. Yeah. Yes, please send us your ideas and your suggestions.
Yes, because billionaires. Anyway,
because it's like it's Zuckerberg versus Musk versus Jack, what's his name, that ran Twitter, who's doing Blue Sky next, that nobody can get an invite except the cool kids. It's life never changes. We're talking about cool kids and not cool kids.
Right?
I know.
Seriously, I don't know where to begin with this one because the movie is, just to say, the movie is genuinely based on the song. The song is not, one of the things about this movie is the soundtrack. It's like a legendary soundtrack. But the song Valley Girl is not on the soundtrack because Mr. Zappa was not interested in being involved in this film. They went to him, right? But he was like, nah. And so they were like, well, we don't need you to make this Valley Girl. But this song is a humongous influence on the production. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
We should talk about our Patreon.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, please keep us in books and movies. Support us on Patreon.
Yes, so we've been doing the show for almost 10 years. It's going to be 10 years in 2024. We have so many episodes that are on our Patreon wall. We're putting up right this summer will be Psycho and Silence of the Lambs. There's been so many others that we've put up there. It's everything from 2020 and the previous to that. So you just go to Patreon. We have a couple of very affordable options, and it really just helps us get books and movies. But if money is tight, we totally understand. We just say, please, wherever you get your podcast, if you can leave us a review, that'd be great. Or seriously, just tell a friend about the show. Or if you'd like stickers, we have some stickers. Drop us your address in an email, and we will send them to you. This episode is also sponsored, buddy. We want to say thank you to Baker Publishing Group. We have a novel, With Every Memory, by author Janine Roche. At its heart, With Every Memory is a story of what happens when an already broken family loses the one person holding them together. Laurie Mendenhall returns home to a family she barely recognizes after the same car accident that killed her sons stole the last 8 years of her memory. Laurie's once loving husband is a stoic workaholic with questionable intentions, and her teenage daughter has been chewed up and spit out by the world following the loss of her twin brother. So as Laurie goes through good and bad memories, as they resurface, she has to decide whether the family she's returning to is beyond hope. And the author did extensive research on trauma, how families can build back together. She's a very popular author, and we're really excited to promote her book. So once again, that's With Every Memory, Janine Roche, and that's the Baker Publishing Group. And we do have the link in our page and in the show notes. So just swipe the artwork and you should get right to it.
It sounds like a really good summer read.
Yes.
Like a good poolside kind of thing. Yeah. Because it's heating up, y'all. Okay. I'm so excited to talk about this movie, but we must talk about Frank Zappa.
Yes.
He died really quite young, but he put out 60 albums, something like that.
And
right?
There's been 30
Such
since
a
he died.
prolific artist.
Yes. I don't know if you saw the documentary. It's on Hulu right now. It's directed by Alex Winter, who was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was Ted. No, he's Bill. Sorry. I get them mixed up. But he directed a biography about Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa is one of those people, like the fans of Frank Zappa, y'all are a very persnickety bunch. You know your stuff. He was a genius. He was technically brilliant in every single way. And he has so much music that's out there. This movie, the documentary, I totally recommend if you get your hands on it. It's just called Zappa. He had his own library of his work, and it just went decades. I mean, he started as a teenager. He loved to edit film. He'd take his family movies and he interjected other stuff. He's a multimedia artist, I would say.
Indeed. Oh, absolutely he was. And such a sense of humor and such a champion of artistic expression and free speech. I always think of him talking to Congress, His father was a chemist. They moved around a lot. So I think he kind of worked in the defense industry a little bit. And when Frank was a teenager, they settled down in San Diego and they lived. This is an interesting little crossover because we were talking last week about one of the things that made Valley Girl the song and then Valley Girl the movie kind of ripe for the culture was Fast Times.
Right.
The movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High by Cameron Crowe. Frank Zappa, when he was a teenager, his family moved around a lot. But when he was in high school, they settled down in Claremont, which is the neighborhood that Fast Times is based on. That's Claremont High School is where Cameron Crowe pretended to be a student and kind of embedded himself. And that's the school that he, although Frank Zappa went to Mission Bay High School, which is the other high school in that area. And that was where he started playing in school bands and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't know that he was in San Diego. Oh,
Well,
wow.
yeah. I just learned that this week. I never knew it either.
We should say, sorry, that it's also based on Romeo and Juliet, but we went much more deep into Romeo and Juliet when we talked about the musical West Side Story, which is I think it's in 2021 that we did it. It's definitely in our free feed, in our basic feed. So definitely check that out. But look, we're
not going to talk about Shakespeare.
We're not going to talk Shakespeare and Romeo. Look, it's the theme of so many, because people say, oh, it's a Romeo and Juliet story. I'm like, everything's kind of a Romeo and Juliet story. This is Romeo and Juliet without the kids dying, which is nice. But we really, I when you brought up we should cover this, I was like, well, it's not, Zappa didn't sign the rights to this. And he was a perfectionist. This is a person who did not tolerate fools. There's a very famous, I don't know if you remember this, but when MTV first started, they had these Friday night concerts. And he had a Friday night, it was like Halloween, and Nina Blackwood was trying to interview him. She was trying to interview him, sorry. And he was so rough on her, just destroy. And she admits it, like, I didn't have my chops. I didn't have.
Yeah.
And she
did not prepare.
No.
One thing, there's huge excitement involved in any Zappa concert, but tonight in particular, bringing together the live broadcasting capabilities of MTV and Starfleet, that's history. That is history, and we're real glad to be a part of it, Starfleet and MTV.
What kind of very, very weird things might have happened in Halloweens of past tenses and things like that? I'm interested in that.
Before we started doing shows at the Palladium, we were doing some shows at the Felt Forum. And there was the historic night when we gave one of the premieres of that song, the famous song, The Legend of the Illinois Enema Bandit, when we actually had some participation from the audience. And the girl who we brought up happened to be a radiologist assistant and knew how to do it. Only I didn't know that when I brought her up. And it was really excellent entertainment. So what else is new, Nina?
Gosh, not that much. I'd rather hear what you have to tell, actually.
This is the first live simulcast in the history of cable broadcasting.
Ah, yes, that's right. It is. It actually is.
And he was not someone, like I said, to suffer fools. He was very intelligent, and if he gave you a couple of chances, and that was about it. And so if he was going to do a movie, he would want to control it. He would want to control the script and the casting and all the music and everything. No one's going to give you that, because we should say he was very, very popular. They were also part of that whole scene in the Valley of the people from Northern California moved to Southern California. I'm thinking of like Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and
like prog rock.
Yes.
And and he had some early success in the 1960s. So he just had for somebody who had such a short life, he had a very long career.
Right.
I guess is what I'm saying.
And he was doing symphonies when he died, when he passed away.
Seriously. Yeah, for real.
So he was, and he also was doing international relations. He was doing work in Prague, having them. I mean, it's, he has his worshipers, and we're just saying there's no way we could reduce him to one episode and do it properly.
No.
So we're just admitting that, like, we're trying to be, we just go for the high level stuff. But I would totally recommend, if you're interested in him, you should definitely check that out. The story for today is that he had 4 kids. I believe it's 4. And
yes, his second wife. He had 4 children.
Right.
Oh, can we remember their names? Oh, they're right here.
Moon Unit.
Moon Unit, Dweezil, Ahmet, and Diva. Dweezil and Ahmet had a band, remember?
They had a show too.
And they had a show. And Moon sang at least one of their songs. She's a good singer, actually. Yeah. She doesn't sing this song. She's speaking it, but her singing voice is actually very nice, I think. Yeah, super talented family. Very, very talented family. Yeah, so he married Gail Sloatman. That was his second wife. And they had we should say also Moon has a book coming out next year, early next year. And they're, Hollywood at that time was quite, we've talked about it before, I forget, numerous movies, quite a debauched place. Lots of drugs, lots of sex, lots of just groupies and not a lot of parental supervision going on. It was a little crazy. And if I remember correctly, Moon, I don't know how all the kids, but I was watching this interview with her, and she was talking about how they put her in this school, like a private school, I think, or something like that. But she was with she was going to school with these Valley girls who were upper middle class. Yeah, it's definitely, and it still is kind of a culture. Los Angeles is such a big, sprawling place. It's massive, you all. If you've never been, that's the thing about LA. Like New York City, it's all dense and packed together and vertical and up into the sky. Los Angeles is just spread out over such a massive area of land, and each little community is its own culture, has its own slang, even today, its own kind of things that are popular with the kids can be totally different from one neighborhood to another. Moon was saying was that and her dad was super famous by then. He was traveling the globe. Her parents had kind of a bumpy relationship, very long, but there was, you were married long enough, but and in that environment, there was some stuff that happened. She said that, he would be gone all the time. And then when he was home, he would be in his studio all the time. And so they never got to see their dad or spend a tremendous amount of quality time with their dad, especially like when they were in school.
Right.
And so one day she wrote him a note. I mean, just to give you an indication, like she wrote him a note, like in her own house. He's in the house, she wrote him a note saying like, well, if if the only way to see you is in the studio, maybe we should work on something together, something to that effect, and slipped it under the door. And then, I forget, like sometime afterwards, like just a knock, like late at night or something. He's like, let's go do this thing. And they worked on this amazing, groundbreaking cultural moment.
I has to so Margot grew up in Southern California. In 1982, I was living in Pennsylvania near where QVC is now. But when I was there was no QVC. It was just cow pastures. It was a hick town. She said it was 2 a.m. Her dad woke her up and said, I have this idea for a riff. Why don't you do that talk thing that you were telling me about the girls at school? So she started doing that because she missed him. She wanted to hang out with him. He said you would come home. If he wasn't in the studio, he was sleeping, and then they had to all be quiet. So it was just like this presence that he had. So she came up with the Valley Girl thing. And so like Margot says, because we'll talk about Good Morning America, that interview I've sent you earlier, that interview is like next level. So much going on.
We should say she's 14.
She's a kid.
She is 14 years old.
Right.
My son is 14 years old. You try to put my son on a show like Solid Gold. Like, you have to get through me first.
Yes.
I cannot believe what this poor young woman had to do.
It's pretty incredible. So once again, Frank Zappa never had a top 40 hit. He was on Saturday Night Live and he hated it. Like he's like a very temperamental person, and he's not one to go with the mass culture. That's not his interest at all. But they have this hit. She loved K-Rock, which is a station that was in LA. I don't know if it's still going, but she gives them an acetate of this song and says, you need to play the song. I think people will like it. And it blew up. And then it started playing across because they didn't have a big distribution at the time either. Then they had to make these copies and they sent them all across the country. And I'm telling you, as a little kid in Pennsylvania, I totally got it. I loved it. And then all my friends were talking like it. And then they were doing promotion for it. So she went on Solid Gold. They went on Letterman together for like a 10-minute segment. Once again, Frank Zappa's a legend. And he's doing interviews with this 14-year-old about her song for a thing he doesn't really...
Uncool.
It was very uncool to him. And I'm sure he was like, where's my hit record? Like, for me. So then they do an interview, and I put it in the Facebook group, and I posted it on TikTok that Moon and him are doing a Good Morning America interview. And it's 5:30 in the morning where they are.
Ugh.
It's lots is going on because like Joan is like, hey, so how does it feel? And she's 14. She's like, I don't know, whatever. And then she's asking Frank, and he's like, well, And it's just this bizarre circumstance. In the meantime, Hollywood is like trying to make all these teen movies because Fast Times does really well. There was Porky's before that. So like teen movies. So like I hear Valley Girl's popular. Let's make a Valley Girl movie. They go to Frank Zappa, and I'm sure he wanted so much, and they were like, we got to write this in like 2 weeks and then film it. We have no time.
Seriously.
And that's what they basically did. So Frank did sue later, so we should say technically they did not approve this. They didn't get paid for it. This is just Hollywood taking a thing and making a thing. This is why people trademark everything. You wonder why people trademark up to their teeth and everything, expressions and everything. This is why. Anyway, this is when they create this movie, and it's Martha Coolidge, and she had directed documentaries before this.
Mm-hmm. She's very cool.
Very cool.
She did that movie Rambling Rose with Laura Dern. You remember that? And Real Genius. I don't remember how the story that she got onto this project, but as Margot said, it was written really quickly because they were like, we got to strike while the iron's hot. We don't have time to wait around for Frank Zappa. With or without you, we're making this movie. And the fact of the matter is, in terms of like examining it for this show and in terms of its place in the culture, there's no way on earth this movie would have ever happened without that song.
Right.
It would not exist. The kids, I'm going to just call them kids, the kids in the cast all say that working on the film and prepping the film, the producers gave them Valley Girl to listen to and study the dialect. It absolutely, I think, counts as an adaptation in this case. And then you have the overlay of the kind of star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet thing. I saw this amazing interview with Martha Coolidge and Nicolas Cage. Did you see that?
No.
It's recent. It's on like the 30th anniversary of the movie. I'll find it and put it in our Facebook group. It is the sweetest thing because Nicolas Cage is, at this point, he's Nicolas Cage. He's already dyeing his hair. We'll just put it that way. And he is so like in awe of Martha Coolidge and like reverential of her. And just like, I can't believe you took a chance on me and I really appreciate it. And you didn't know that I was a Coppola. She didn't know that he was a Coppola.
Right.
And he just really, really has such a, this film is very important to him, and we'll talk about why in a minute. And she was so smart she was talking about the movie, and it's very clear that she was extremely deliberate about the decisions that she made in the movie, the way everybody is presented and the dialogue and all of that. And it's incredible because it is a movie that was put together so quickly. Like the studio just wanted to crank this thing out. And like we said, strike while the iron is hot. Let's just get this thing out there. And she was like, no, we're going to actually make
a movie,
a story. And the reason why it works so well and holds up so well is really because you had this brilliant woman calling the shots. Yeah, she's really cool. I really admire her.
Why don't we play the trailer and then we'll talk about this movie.
Ow, dang me, how could you?
For sure, Brody. Besides, it's totally gnarly birth control.
I can't stand it. Okay, so he's awesome.
Valley Girl.
She's out there somewhere.
This is the story of a boy from Hollywood who never dreamed the girl he'd want most was down here.
Hello.
Hello. Who invited you?
Oh, wow, you mean you have to be invited? Well, that explains it.
What?
Well, everyone is dressed weird. See, if I had been invited, I would have known this was a costume party.
Right.
It's the story of a girl from the Valley who never dreamed she'd ever be seen with a boy from over here.
Like, I'm not getting out of this car.
All right, but when they attack the car, save the radio. So when can I see you again?
I'm here with you now.
I know.
This is the story of Randy and Julie, the way they come together, and the people who try to pull them apart.
Like, don't you think they have parties over there? Oh, where? At the zoo?
This geek that she's with could scar her for life.
God, life?
If you think she's confused, you should see her father.
I'm together now. Be right there.
Julie's cool. Randy's hot. She's from the Valley. He's not. Valley Girl.
If you look at the poster for this movie, by the way, and people always bring this up, because I've always wondered too, I'm like, that's not Deborah Foreman in the poster with Nicolas Cage. It's another actress who has another role in the film. Either they hadn't cast her yet or that she wasn't available that night. It was a $350,000 budget, and they wrote this, like I said, I think it was in 10 days, and they just had a few weeks to shoot it and then edit it. And then it was out the following April. Like, they really fast-tracked this thing. So they have Nicolas Cage, who's like 19 or 20 years old, Deborah Foreman. Their chemistry is ridiculous.
It's so good. It's so good.
They're in
It's
love.
so believable. They're in love. Yeah, Deborah Foreman now is known as kind of a scream queen.
Mm-hmm.
She does a lot of horror stuff, and she has a huge following like for that. She's delightful in this. She was from Texas. This is really her first, major role. She had an agent, and she got the call to read for this. And they were looking at like Michelle Pfeiffer, who was virtually unknown at the time, and who also would have been good. Michelle Pfeiffer, because she'd been in Grease too.
Right.
I remember her agent told the studio, like, oh, well, if you're going to cast her, you need to cast her now because she's going to go do this movie in France called something or other, like Women in Love or something like that. And so they cast her, and that was a total lie. Like, so she got cast on kind of a bluff. She's awesome, though. I think she's so good. And she talks about, like, she listened to that song over and over and over and over again because not only did she not have a Valley Girl accent, she didn't even have a West Coast accent because she was from Texas.
Like, he's not so awesome. Awesome's not the word for Brad. Oh, I'm sure. He's okay, I guess. Am I kidding?
Yeah, he makes my mouth water.
Oh! Brad will be at my party tonight. Great. That'll, attract every girl west of Van Nuys Boulevard. Your place will be packed. Okay, so he's awesome. Julie, don't be so greedy. Save some for the rest of us. Tommy is such a hunk. I can't stand it. He is so bitchin'. I can't even believe you'd give Brad the time of day.
Yeah, but Tommy could be such a dork, he's got the bod, but his brains are bad news.
But he is bitchin'. You really are so lucky, Julie.
I know, but we've been going together so long now. I'm beginning to think I'm a piece of furniture or something, like an old chair. Oh, bad news. I definitely need something new.
Dad's off at home in his speech, okay?
Good, okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
That sounds good.
Julie, we totally need to get ready for surprise. We'll have time to get ready for my party.
Yes, we will.
What a surprise finding you here.
Well, where should I be? At home waiting for the phone to ring? I could grow old and prune up waiting for that to happen.
Funny. What's your problem?
What's my problem? Tried 2 days and no phone calls. Look, I'll see you guys at the bus, okay? Okay. That's already. It's like I'm totally not in love with you anymore, Tommy. It's so boring. Here.
Not too cool, Julie. I won't be bummed out. Who else is there? Oh, the Val dude can touch me. She must be really freaking out.
We should also say that there's Michelle Mayring, who was she would be in Revenge of the Nerds and also in Real Genius. She was kind of in a lot of nerdy, really big-time nerdy movies. There's Elizabeth Daily, who sometimes goes by E.G. Daily, who's the voice of Babe the Pig.
La, la, la.
She does a ton of cartoon voices. She's adorable in this. She's in Better Off Dead.
She was in one of the Pee-wee movies, right?
Yes, she's the girlfriend in the Pee-wee movies.
Yeah.
Yes, and or wannabe girlfriend. And she's also, she's done a ton of voice work. And we have Cameron Dye, who plays Nicolas Cage's best friend, Fred, who's just so cute, too. It's so well cast, this movie. Michael Bowen is the evil boyfriend, who's like Tommy, who's like every blonde bad guy.
Gross.
And I know.
He's so terrible.
These blonde, preppy, awful men that were in these movies as the bad guy. He's
like
good.
He's like the older brother of James Spader's character in Pretty in Pink.
Yep. It's like a William Zabka in there as well. There's like all that trope of them. But the story, which is really pretty amazing, the parents are Colleen Camp and Frederick Forrest. I mean, Colleen Camp was only like 10 years older than her too, but
yeah.
But they have such a great, because they were in Apocalypse Now together. They were longtime friends, but they're the parents, and the dad is this former hippie, his current hippie. He has like his own like vegan shop.
They have like a macrobiotic store / restaurant,
which is so 83 basically.
It's so LA.
It's so LA. It's so 83. And so she's her name is Julie, and Julie has her friends, and she goes to the Galleria and she shops, and she has the accent.
Oh, which we should say for people who don't know, the Galleria was, I don't think it's open anymore. It's still there. The building is still there. And there's still, like a lot of these abandoned malls in flux right now.
Sad.
But the Galleria, when the Galleria opened, was the premier mall of the United States. It was, the best architecture. It had everything. You never had to leave the Galleria. Parents would drop their kids off, on Saturday morning, and they would come home before dark. And without ever leaving the Galleria, you'd go to the movies, you go shopping, you go get something to eat. You would go talk by the fountain.
You flirt with boys.
You would flirt with boys, and you were in this sort of safe, sanitized environment, and that's how it was. In California. And also we in California, we always had a lot of mall culture here.
Yes,
I think
I worked in
already
a mall.
going way back, but many of our malls at that time were outdoor. And the Galleria was an indoor cover mall. And that was one of the things that made it special, because they could also control the climate. A joke that I never got until this week, as many times as I've seen this movie, and I love this movie so much.
Me too.
There's a joke right at the beginning I never got until this week. And the beginning of the movie is an aerial view, clearly from a helicopter. They're up in a helicopter, and the helicopter is going from Los Angeles proper to over the little hill into the valley, the San Fernando Valley. And the beginning is a radio station in Los Angeles, and it's like, hello, here we are on K-Rock, and in LA today, it's going to be, it's like 73 degrees, and there's going to be a beautiful day. And then it kind of, as you go over the hill, it crossfades into a valley radio station, and the valley radio station says, and, KFLM in the valley, and today it's going to be a balmy 85 degrees, something like that, because the valley is so much freaking hotter than the rest of Los Angeles. It's surrounded by, the hills that surround it just trap the heat and hold it in. And yeah, in this like 20 minutes it takes to get from any other part of Los Angeles into the valley, it is 10 degrees hotter, which I never noticed that joke before ever this week. And I was just cracking up. It was so funny. And I didn't get either that we are crossing from Los Angeles. I'd never really listened to it. I just it's the radio, but I hadn't actually listened to what they were saying until this week. And I love it. It's so smart. Yes. And it's such a great, again, Martha Coolidge, just setting the tone of, we're going to have this clash of cultures, between the valley and like this encapsulated world of the valley, almost like Barbie right now,
right,
versus the real world of Los Angeles. And then we're in the Galleria, and come on
I miss mall life, to be honest with you.
It was fun.
I went to the mall today to get some equipment that we needed for the show, and I was like, oh yeah, you can do everything here. You could get all your needs in one place and take it home with you. You don't have to wait for it. I mean, I know it's this whole different world. So the valley is where these kids hang out, is at the mall. They're very pretty girls. This is very white, by the way, we should say. This is very suburban, and
oh, it sure is. It sure is. There's one black girl at the party. I don't see anybody there that looks like me, and I don't see any Asians. So yeah. And that was definitely like that culture that was being, you remember 17 magazine, the culture, the teenage culture, and all of the movies were so white, such a white thing. And that's just how it was. I mean,
right.
That's MTV was white, and all the magazines, when you went to the mall, all of the ads were all white young people. And I think it captures it super well. Oh, and there's this other scene where they're in the gallery. I mean, the Easter eggs in this movie, it's just so delightful. Like she's so smart. There's this scene where they're in the Galleria and the girls, it's right at the beginning and the girls are coming down the escalator. And then on the other side, on the up escalator, is one of these women. We knew them in the 80s. Every town had one. Every community had one. The woman with the 6 feet of hair. Remember the woman with the 6 feet of hair? I mean, we had them. And there's one. There she is, the woman with the 6 feet of hair. Going up the Galleria escalator. I mean, such an 80s moment. The girls are talking about, they're looking at guys. They're young. They're carefree. Julie, our main character, is talking about like, I'm in this relationship with this Tommy. I'm not really getting anything out of it. Like, it's super boring. And like, what are we doing? I don't even know. And the girl's like, are you kidding? He's so hot. You should, what are you talking about? Just, he's the best. He's like everything we could possibly want. And when he shows up, like, he is the man. He's like a Jordache ad.
It's also, we should say, preppy culture was like popular just before this.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
That was a big deal. Like that was satirized everywhere. But yeah, it's this very upper middle class white environment, and that's what they're representing. And so they go to a school with they're the most popular girls in the school. The guys have the flipped collars. The girls have the bandanas that you use as a belt, and you use it like to put up your hair. I mean, it's just all this stuff. Like I was like, oh my God, I remember all of this. I loved every outfit.
I always
wore,
think that this is the look that Steve Bannon thinks he's pulling off.
Yes. Yes.
He's not.
No, he's not. I think Deborah Foreman looks beautiful in this movie.
Her wardrobe. I mean, the wardrobe.
Amazing.
The wardrobe choices. Perfection.
Yeah.
No notes.
And they had no budget, so they were like borrowing clothes from people. Like that's how it got. That's why it feels real when you look at it. Like they just look like real kids. So she's dating Tommy. He's kind of a jerk, but she doesn't, she's not really shopping. She doesn't know any other guys that kind of spark her interest. And then they go to a party, and at the party, and I love it that Michelle Mayrink, she has, is it Michelle? No, it's the other girl. I think it's Michelle. She's the one that has the stepmother that the father died. And so the stepmother's like only 30. And so she's flirting with these kids. It's so gross, but it's funny.
It's so gross, but it is hilarious. Yeah. And that's her subplot. That's the kind of, little takeoff on like 80s version of The Graduate.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's got this hot stepmom. And she also has a crush on this guy, and the stepmom is pretty Skippy. And I love the names, like Tommy and Skippy, and
Julie
and Lauren, and
Susie.
Yeah. And so that's a whole subplot. So they have a party, and again, just like in Romeo and Juliet with the masquerade ball, and but the kids are all at the beach, we should say. After the Galleria, you're at the beach. And this is true that, in California, at least in Southern California, certainly in those days, it didn't matter if you were like a surfer or a beach, a swimmer, you were going to end up at the beach. Because that's just a place to hang out. It's just a place where kids can go and hang out for free. And, maybe you're going in your jeans, but
right.
But everybody goes to the beach. And if everybody is at the beach in their swimsuits, like you can only get swimsuits from so many places, especially in those days, things like punk rock garb versus Valley Girl garb goes away. And so you don't know when you meet somebody at the beach in their swimsuit if that's somebody who is of your crowd or not necessarily.
You don't know if they're a goth or not,
No, you don't know. So the kids are all at the beach. Nicolas Cage and Fred.
Cameron Dye.
Yeah, who's great in this too. Like their friendship, you really buy it. And they're at the beach and they see these cute girls and they hear that there's going to be a party. And Fred's like, oh, that's where these cute girls are going to be. We got to go there. And so they show up at the party. But then, of course, they're now in their normal clothes. And we all realize like, oh, you're not the same kind of, well, no, you're not what we thought you were. It's very similar to the Romeo and Juliet thing where they spot each other, but then they show up at the party and the love interests are from two different social classes and backgrounds that hate each other and hijinks ensue.
Don't be afraid.
What are you doing here? Do you have a death wish or something?
That's what Fred said.
Fred said.
Never mind. You live around here?
Like, this is very strange. What are you doing back here?
I forgot my comb.
Really now?
Well, to tell you the truth, I kind of thought that maybe you and I could,
We could what?
we could get out of here.
Like, I don't think you'd be any more welcome down there right now.
I mean, let's leave the party.
I'm so sure.
Kill. I'll meet you out front.
Wait a minute. Where are we gonna go?
I don't care.
What are we gonna do?
Anything.
Okay, but I have to bring my best friend.
That's fine. I'll be waiting for you.
Please, I don't want to go. I told you. It's gonna be fun. It is not gonna be fun. I don't know why you're not even here. Okay. I don't. Let's go back. Come on. God, I know we're around here. Where? Right there.
Hey, come here.
Oh no! Not those guys. They're us. Do not sleep us. No. You've lost your mind. No. Look at them. Well, but we're gonna scale us, okay? Do this for me. Do this for me. No. Come on. Julie?
Hi, I'm Fred. I like tacos, a 71 Cabernet, and my favorite color is magenta.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Julie, and this is Stacy.
Charmed, I'm sure.
I am simply gonna freak out and die. Would you get in the car? God! I will pay whatever it takes to make sure nobody breathes a word of this. Like, I'll be totally bummed out if anyone on Earth outside of this car finds out about this. God, where's your sense of adventure? Just shut up.
I personally guarantee you will have the time of your life tonight.
They get thrown out of the party,
but then
because he barely looked at her.
Yeah, he looked at her, and Tommy got jealous. And Tommy, by the way, is getting Lauren,
who's drunk, takes advantage of her being drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
And we should also say that at the time, they showed breasts in movies all the time, especially teen movies. They weren't even thinking about
it was such
how
a
appropriate that was.
No, just like, here's some teenagers. Like, yeah. That's the thing that happened a lot.
And so she had to show, I think it was like it was a few pairs of breasts, but they didn't say how long you had to show it or what context. So she tried to keep it as real as possible without being salacious.
Right, which I think she does. Manages. Yeah.
So Nicolas Cage and Fred, they get kicked out of the party. And then Randy and Fred, they get kicked out of the party, and then Randy sneaks back to meet her. And like I said, their chemistry is just, when they're talking to each other. It's really good. I've heard different things, like they were dating, they weren't dating. I mean, Nicolas Cage says, I had a big crush on her. She's like, oh no, we were just friends. I don't know. But there's so much chemistry there. I'm like, they're in love. They're going to get married and have babies, and they have grandchildren now, and they're happy. I mean, you get all of that from that. He takes her out, and this is where I get super happy, is when they're just going down the LA Strip in 1982, 83.
Oh, right.
Landmarks.
I know. Come on. And he takes them she brings her friend along.
Right.
And so Fred and the friend are they're also kind of like got a little bit of a kind of a thing
flirty
going
thing.
On. And a little flirty thing. And, the Valley girls are not really sure about like leaving the Valley. This is maybe just a little, they go to this club, which is now the Viper Room.
Mm-hmm.
And the band, like, it only has the best bands ever playing, like the Plim Souls. Okay. Where these teenagers can just go and see the plimsolls.
Yeah, you could be
I
a teenager and go to a club. And so he's taking her. They're going down the strip. They're in this convertible. I mean, what is better than that? Come on. But I think it's Stacy that goes with her. But Stacy's kind of a pill. Like, she doesn't like anything. She's that girl that, she can't handle different. Whereas Julie's like, oh, this sounds fun. I want to try something new.
I never did this before. Yeah.
Never did this before. So they start dating, and he just takes her out and they try different things. And that whole montage of them is just so special. And you also learn that her parents, like I said, are hippies, and they pretty much are like, you do what you want to do. You need to make your own decisions. We're just here to help you out. They get a little worried when she's out all night, but then she's like, they make her have to talk about it. And she goes, why can't you just ground me like Lauren's parents? They're like, that's bad karma. We can't ground you. They're very, very loving people, but they let her do her thing. But it's a very sweet relationship that develops.
God, this stuff is so gross. How could people eat that?
Because it isn't greasy doesn't mean it's bad for you, Dodo.
It's yuck.
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 You're a yuck.
Oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Julie, what are you doing? Are you all right?
I'm humiliated to the max. Hi.
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 Randy, this is my dad.
Steve Richmond. What's happening, man? How's it going?
Foreman, how you doing?
Great.
It's great.
He wants a sandwich.
All right, yeah. Okay.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to see you.
But why here?
What's wrong with this place?
This place is so gross. I mean, all this stuff that tastes like nothing supposed to be so good for you.
What about this slow?
Did you get in trouble the other night?
For what?
Coming home so late.
No.
Why didn't your parents find out?
Yeah, they were waiting up.
Don't they care?
For sure they care, but I'm supposed to develop into my own person, you know?
Oh, well, that sounds good. How about a Coke?
Sorry. My dad said they supported the war effort and it rots the enzymes in your stomach.
Well, that sounds good to me.
Right. Hey, let's get out of here.
Don't you have to work?
I've got flexible hours. See you, Dad.
Bye-bye, sweetie. Come up with any new gizmos?
We got some new stuff. You can come by and take a look at it.
Honey, where's Julie?
She left with Randy.
Who's Randy?
I think he's that dude she was out with the other night.
Do you think we should talk to her about this?
I don't know. Maybe I should talk to her.
The one part of the movie that doesn't work for me is that she's so concerned about her friends that she breaks up with him in order to get back with Tommy. And I'm just like, why does Lauren want her to be with Tommy if she and Tommy already had a thing? Why?
But she doesn't. If you watch, she's not going along with the other girls. She's the only one who's, quietly, but she's piping up being like, well, maybe you should do what you think is right. And, maybe you should really just think about this really carefully before you run back to Tommy. Yeah. And I think she does. I think Elizabeth Daly does just a great job as Lauren.
She's very good.
Because it's not an easy
character.
She has a lot to do in this movie. And I think she handles it really well. But at the same time, I know I thought that too. And I used to think that when I was a kid, like, how could she just, because her friend said, how could this is their whole world is living in the Valley and going to this high school. And you know how it is. Like if you are going to high school and everybody is not speaking to you and everybody's ostracizing you, that's a big
deal. And she's only a junior.
Yeah.
She's got one more year to go. I can understand.
So I can see her being swayed in that way. And Tommy, like this guy is so horrible. It's really just about his ego. He doesn't know anything about her or care about her, really. It's just about the fact that she's pretty and he doesn't want people to think that she dumped him. So she breaks up but then this has to happen. So she has to break up with the guy that she really likes because he's different. And he he is persuaded by his friend Fred, who's a good friend, to fight for her by being there and showing up and being present and doing crazy romantic things. And that's another fun montage of the film where, he shows up at the they go to the movies. She and Tommy go to the movies and he's the ticket taker. They go to the drive-in and he's the waiter and he's putting on like different voices. And we're getting to see Nicolas Cage's a lot of range from Nicolas Cage in this movie that we've not seen in anything he's done so far. We've seen little glimpses like in Fast Times, like in Rumblefish, which he's making at the same time as this movie.
Right.
Those two movies come about at the same time. And he's awesome in Rumblefish, like we talked about last week, but it's definitely one kind of lane character. He's not getting to do like funny things, that he's not getting to show all this stuff that he gets to show in this movie. I mean, he's so good in this.
It just made me think of because I always think of like Moonstruck. Like I love, you and I both love Moonstruck. That's like one of our favorite movies.
Moonstruck so much.
It's so wonderful, and he's so great in it, and he's so like wacky and yet romantic, and you could totally get it. And I think it starts here. Like this
absolutely, it does.
As an audience, like we get it from here. So he's doing that funny montage. And he's like, and Nicolas Cage apparently like slept in his car, and he just did all these things to stay in character, which I could totally see Nicolas Cage doing. And I love the talk. I love it when he meets the dad, and the parents are just, the dad is, Frederick Forrest is so lovely as the father. He's so like,
I just love
respectful
him.
of her, trying to teach her good values, but letting her make her own mistakes and making her. So he's totally fine with them dating. And then when she says to him, I think I want to break up with him because everyone's going to make fun of me. And he's just like, was that really what you want to do? Is that, people used to make fun of how I looked. I loved when he's looking at the pictures. It's just, who's that? Because that was before your mother. Anyway, but it's very, very romantic and very sweet. But he's letting her make her own choices, which is what you should do. You should have your kid. They have to make their own mistakes. They have to make their own successes. That's how it works. Then we get to the prom scene. And we have, is it Josie Cotton who's singing?
Josie Cotton, come on! I love Josie Cotton.
She's
so great. First of all, I want that skirt.
I was
want
thinking
her skirt
too.
that she's wearing in this. I remember seeing it because I saw this movie in the movie. So this movie came out, I was like 10. You know how when you're a teenager and you go out with the other teenagers and your family's like, take your little cousin so you don't get into trouble, right? Like you got to take your little cousin along. That was me. I was the little cousin that I had to go along with my older teenage cousins. And so I saw this in the movie theater with them. And I remember like, I want that skirt. Even then, I was like, the second I saw it, I was like, I must find it. I've never found it. I don't know where it's like a pleather, shiny. It's somehow like a scene of like a racetrack or something. It's the coolest skirt ever that has ever been made. And I want it. And now another thing that happened in this film that I never noticed, never made me laugh until this week. It never really even made much of an impression on me. This week, let me tell you, I laughed my booty off at the teacher who was introducing Julie and Tommy.
And now, students, the moment that you've all been waiting for, the announcement of the King and the Queen of Valley High. What is being King and Queen all about? Is it about who wears the nicest clothes? I think not. Is it about who's dating the captain of the football team? Or who's seeing the head cheerleader? I don't think so. Is it a popularity contest? I doubt it.
I'm gonna give you the chance you never gave me.
One can't help it. When one is honorable, when one is disciplined, when one is school-spirited. Yes, kings and queens, they don't grow on trees.
All of you.
Everyone can't be a king and a queen.
School boy.
No, students.
Get up.
I remember my prom. I wanted to be the queen. I wasn't.
What are you doing, huh? What's this?
Who have set an example for our whole school with their behavior. They need no introduction, because they are not just the king and queen of Valley High. They are Valley High. Your king, your queen.
Yes.
I salute you, ma'am. Chef's kiss. It's like the choices in this film are so perfect. Where she's going on about like, what does it mean to be prom queen? Kids, you're not going to believe this, but I wanted to be queen. I wasn't.
She takes it so seriously, like they're
so
listening.
Seriously.
And these kids are half buzzed because they put
they're not
punch
listening
bowl,
at all.
Booze in the punch bowl and they're dancing like they don't care. And yeah, she makes a big deal about introducing them. And then off screen, Nicolas Cage is having a fight with Tommy, and it's pretty great. It's very simple. This movie's like an hour and a half. They get into the
not even
right?
Yeah,
and then they get out of there, and the whole thing is that Tommy had set up that the limo would take them to a hotel, and he made a reservation at a hotel.
Tommy is such a jerk that he's so terrible. He's such a jerk that he has reserved a hotel room. Like, he's so confident in himself. He's reserved a hotel room to take Julie to after the prom without telling her, without asking her. He's just done it, and but she ends up in the limo with Nicolas Cage, and the limo driver's like, well, I'm supposed to take you guys to the Sheraton. Are we still doing that? And they're like, yeah,
sounds good.
Let's let Tommy buy us a hotel room.
And that's the movie.
The end.
And the song "I Melt with You," which a lot of these songs I don't get tired of. I hear them now, and
the soundtrack is so amazing. It's so good. You've got Sparks.
Yes.
You've got Angst in My Pants and Monster of Love. I love Monster of Love. Of course, the Plimsolls. You've got Eyes of a Stranger. You got A Million Miles Away. The songs in this movie, Men at Work.
Yeah.
Don't put another dime in the jukebox. Come on. It's so good.
It's like
it's so great.
There's just so many really great songs, and they didn't release a soundtrack right away because Fast Times at Ridgemont High was a double album. I remember that because I had it.
Yes, and that was another like humongous soundtrack.
So I think artists were like not so quick to just give away their songs, like to be on a soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a very hard time putting the soundtrack together. It took like 10 years before.
But now with today's technology, we've got playlists that people put together. They just kind of like put them all together. If you want to hear all of the songs that are in the movie, including the ones that were not included on the soundtrack because they couldn't get the licensing, you can find it. It's such an awesome soundtrack, and it's again, hats off to Martha Coolidge.
She's the hero of this.
The way that she's chosen which songs they are put in the exact perfect place when we have our little subplot. And I love the way she uses this subplot, by the way, of because it's dumb, the like thing about the graduate, and we think
Skippy.
she's setting it up so it looks like Skippy's gonna like do it with the stepmom who's the MILF, right? And but no, actually, no, that's not what happens. And that she picks Monster of Love for that segment. It's perfection. The choices, no notes. It's such a great movie. The performances are so good, and the wardrobe and the houses. I knew those houses. I went to those houses.
Yes.
It was all. I just remember it all being so familiar. Even at 10 years old, seeing it in the movie theater, like, yeah, I fully know those neighborhoods. I know those kids, and it just holds up remarkably well, just so well.
It has so much heart to it.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. Yeah, you really believe these people and you care about them.
Yeah. You're rooting for them. It's super good. It's really super good. Yeah, all the locations, Dupar's, all of it. Now we have to talk briefly about this musical. help me understand the musical.
I didn't see the musical.
Nor did I. I've only seen like snippets of the movie of the musical. Am I to understand it's a jukebox musical? Is that right? It's like an 80s jukebox musical.
I honestly don't know very much about the
Me
movie.
either. I know Alicia Silverstone is in the movie.
I know there was a remake.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, it didn't come out until 2020, although they made it in like 2017.
Oh, because Logan Paul is in the movie and he has his own
are there
controversies.
Issues?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's a YouTube personality with a lot of issues. So, yeah, it was released during COVID, so I don't remember.
Oh, well, from the little bit I saw about, and nobody made a hullabaloo about it. And the little bit of it that I saw, it seemed to be a jukebox musical.
Yeah.
And it was told as a flashback. But from the Julie has grown up, I think she's Alicia Silverstone, and she's telling her daughter, like, I understand what it's like to be young. And then she tells the whole story. Just watch this.
Yeah, watch this. What's the point?
It's so good.
It really holds up. It's such a great time capsule of LA. It's such a great time capsule of like the early 80s in America. It really, it covers a lot of things for me, that checks a lot of boxes for me.
Yep.
Just
same.
Yeah. And I can't say I like anything better than the other. I think they're both just their own thing. When I hear Valley Girl now, I get excited because
same. Listen, it's really good.
It's a great song.
Frank Zappa, as we said, is a super genius. The tom-tom kind of drumming that's going on, and the backing vocals, and the whole thing is like so beautifully done.
So bitchin'. Like
Ventura, there he goes. She just wants some bitchin' clothes. Tosses her head and flips her hair. He got a whole bunch of nothing in later.
Anyway, he goes, "Are you into S&M?" I go, "Oh right. Could you like just picture me in a leather teddy?" Yeah, right. Hurt me. I'm sure, no way. He was like freaking me out. He called me a beastie. That's his total list. He goes like.
Yeah, of course. They both stand alone, and a lot of the stuff. Oh, I was going to say, I mentioned that they had all of the cast listen to the song over and over again to try to nail the accent. But Martha Coolidge, I can't remember if it was Martha Coolidge or if it was somebody talking about Martha Coolidge, said that they didn't want the movie to be just about that.
Right.
And so the decision was made that as the story goes on, there's less and less of that, grody, da da da. There's that kind of it gets dialed down. As the story expands, the novelty gets dialed back, and which is again
Smart.
Yet another amazing choice. But yeah, this song, man, I will never forget hearing. I was in my bedroom. It came on the radio. I literally froze because people are talking. I remember thinking they're playing this song. It was kind of a weird song, but it wasn't that weird. It sounded a little bit like Adamant, or it has a little like a bow wow wow kind of a sound. And what I thought was happening, I remember what I thought was happening was that maybe that they had kept the mic on in the radio station and somebody had left. Somebody was talking over the song was what I thought was happening. And it's long. It's like 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's 4.5 minutes.
It's not a short song. And as it was going on, me realizing no, this is the song. They made a song about the way we talk because everybody I knew talked like that. That is the way the kids at school talked. That is the way my cousins talked. That is the way young people talked in Southern California at that time. And I remember just being frozen and staring at the radio and coming to the realization, no, this is the song. This is about this weird thing in the way that we talk that our parents are always going on about. Why do you talk like this? Because our parents didn't talk that way.
No, it was totally
I remember the adults saying why are you, what do you mean? What are you even saying? I remember hearing adults say. because our accent, it's like this such a heightened version of a Southern California accent. It's very today we would call it Kardashian.
Yes.
We have in Southern California, and especially in Southern California, California's a humongous state for those of you who aren't aware. It's like 2 states. Southern California, we do this thing where we have an I-E-A-E substitution in the way that we speak. So, for instance, I would have scrambled eggs for breakfast, not eggs. Eggs. I would put my money in the bank, not the bank, the bank. I would sleep with my head on a pillow. So we have so that vowel thing gets like the way kids do. You take the language and you make it your own, and it gets exaggerated until the adults have no idea what you're saying. So yeah, it was amazing. And then to have the brilliance. I mean, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the story was and how Martha Coolidge got assigned to this film, but some brilliant person, there was a lot of stars that aligned, and she got placed in the right place at the right time and turned this into this thing that we're still talking about today. People love this movie.
And it really holds up well. And I should say that, Frank Zappa sued and lost. And
he lost.
He lost. So I always wonder, if he ever saw it or if Moon ever saw it, what they thought of it. I wonder if but he, like I said, he was such a control freak. He would never just sign on to something. There's certain people like Kiss will sign anything and make a Kiss thing, like a Kiss coffin, a Kiss whatever.
Right.
Sure. Zappa would never do that. That was not how he did
Yeah, things. I got the impression, and I really am interested in reading her book, but I got the impression from Moon that they had enough money. That he didn't need to be chasing, and you can see it in the, and not that he would anyway, but you can see it in the marketing that they did for this song, that like he didn't need to market this song. She didn't need to be on Solid Gold. They just kind of did it for a goof. And he didn't need to be like selling film rights to a song, because he didn't have to. So why should he? So he can be a hard ass about it. So yeah, I get it, but grateful for it.
I'm grateful too.
It's an excellent song. It's super well done. And I love this movie. And the movie would not exist without the song. So thank you to everybody involved.
Yes.
It just, this whole thing just makes my heart so happy.
Same. Well, please, reach out to us all the places we mentioned at the top of the show with your ideas. We're always looking for them. It could be a book, short story, magazine article, a song. Once again, our email is bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And please be sure to subscribe and leave a few stars should you feel you'd like to do that for us. That would be amazing. Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You could find me on Twitter, while that still exists, at Brooklyn Margot. It's Brooklyn Fit Chick for my Instagram, for my Threads, and that's the name of my site. And then on TikTok, I'm at Margot Donahue, and I put some clips from Valley Girl there, and also Moon and Frank being interviewed. So check that out. All right, everyone. Oh, next week we're going to be covering The Killers, which is a short story by Ernest Hemingway, and it's a movie starring, is it Burt Lancaster, or it's Amy Gardner and Burt Lancaster? Classic film. We're very excited to talk about that.
Yeah, we haven't talked about him since if you build it, they will come. He was in that.
Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams. Yes.
And have we ever talked about Ernest Hemingway?
I don't think we have. I think this is going to be our first Hemingway.
Sure we have. That's awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's going to be coming up.
I'm sorry, it's totally tubular. Radical.
I'm a Val, I know. All right, everybody. You've been awesome. I still say awesome.
Same.
We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags LadyPodSquad and Podern Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon, and look for Book versus Movie Podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs. Movie Podcast group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book versus Movie. Spell all those words out. If you'd like to send us an email, it's Book versus Movie Podcast, spell that all out, at gmail.com. You can follow Margot D at Brooklyn Fit Chick on social media and Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thanks so much again for checking out our show, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.